today we are here to bring back the spotlight to them and actually share with you some really good examples.
They create new businesses. They create new companies with the same rules, same format. That's why we are growing every year by at least two new ventures.
So if you try to define a business as to be a family business whereby a family owns more than 50%, then that wouldn't qualify for many family businesses in town.
So succession planning is not that common in Africa, but I wanted to point out and to really stress out that it is important.
Setups that will make them be able to progress and to start thinking about their investment projects, about the next generations, and about, I would say, the best way to replicate these to others and become themselves blueprints for the others.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, my esteemed panelists. Thank you for joining us for this afternoon session. Today we have the pleasure of addressing one very important topic about the successful continuance, maintaining the successful continuance in the family-owned businesses, about the succession planning, about the governance models, and the next generation engagement. So today you will have this unique opportunity to hear from our esteemed panelists on trends, how we can do this and maintain the future of family-owned businesses. Because you might be surprised about some staggering numbers that I have to share with you, but family-owned businesses account to 70% of the global GDP. They account to 60% of the global employment. And sometimes they are quite underestimated, and their role in the global economy sometimes goes unnoticed. So today we are here to bring back the spotlight to them and actually share with you some really good examples. We will start with the most important example from the Middle East and learn more from Mr. Al-Zayani and how you managed to have this 4 transitions so far with 3 generations in the business. And actually the Wharton University did an official case study on this. So this is a very esteemed Ivy League American university. And thank you so much for being with us. And we're really looking forward to hear this example.
It is still exciting to talk to you. I am very honored and pleased to be amongst you today. To give you an example, an existing example of how we organized our group. Like old family businesses, everything was running like on baraka. There was no rule, no regulation, and eventually that leads to destruction of that business. The disruption of a partnership that could have grown into something enormous. When I worked for the old family business, we were here in the UAE, and we were pioneers in so many ventures, especially auto industry, throughout the region. But because they did not provide us, our fathers, with a proper governance, the company had to be dissolved. And we were very sad to see it go because nobody bothered to put the right basis. In the company that I created, and established with my brothers later on, we recovered a lot of mileage. And we learned few lessons from the failures of the old family business. And if somebody teaches me how to do this technology, I'll move to the next one. This one? No? Huh.
You know, the technology sometimes works for us, sometimes against us, so please bear with us. You're in for a treat today, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Well, the new family structure was established with a clear principle, a total separation between ownership and management. In our new structure, not so new, I'm talking about the 70s, we don't have one member of the family who's a CEO of any of our companies. The idea behind it that I can replace a CEO, but I can't replace family. And I want the family to be maintained as well as the business. And why do I waste a family member as a manager of a routine business that somebody else can do it and run it better? The family has a role. The family has a vision. This dedicated CEO knows his business better than a family member just because he's family. And each company that we own is run with the governance of a public company, monitored by the Ministry of Commerce. There are only 3 partners in this new configuration, the 3 brothers. And each brother, each partner is responsible for his own family. The business is not hurt by the ill behavior of family. The partner is responsible for the welfare of his siblings, education, housing, whatever they deserve to have. The business is run like a business. This is not run like a family gathering. Each CEO will present a business plan to his own board. So each company has its own board, its own CEO. And that board consists of family and non-family. From day one, we've always had qualified people sitting on every company's board that has a vote and authority. The CEO, once he receives his authority from the board to get on with his business plan, nobody interferes in his business. And each company is cash rich. 50% of its income stays in the company, which is very important for a CEO. And so a CEO, at the same time, needs some family muscle. So on each board, there is a family member. A CEO cannot reach a prime minister. He could be an Englishman, he could be an Asian, he could be even Bahraini. They need family muscle and a sounding board while he's running his business. But that family member does not interfere in the running of the business. That business is run purely by a professional CEO. And as you see, there are non-family on the board, professional people who gave us advice, who fought with us when we went wrong. And we established the rules as such. We had a sister of ours, a daughter, no, a sister, I'm missing out. But she got hijacked by her husband and we lost her. Then the second board came in, and you can see addition of new members of the family. A third board. Now, how did that happen? A rule was made when we established the company. When you're 65, you have to step out of the board to give the other generation a chance to shine. Now, not every family member can reach the board. First of all, they have to be well educated, usually masters from the UK or US. And they have to have working experience in the US or in the UK for at least 2 years. And they come and have to report to somebody. There is no father, there is no brother, no cousin. They report to one of the CEOs in one of the companies, and they grow up the ladder, and they have to earn it. And when they become capable of being a CEO, they don't. They shift to the ownership group. There they have two rules. One, to support CEOs, as I said earlier, and the other role, because they had the experience and they have also time, they create new businesses. They create new companies with the same rules, same format. That's why we are growing every year by at least two new ventures, set up on the same principle, in businesses that we've never been in. We are in so many different businesses. I'll come very briefly to that. But we are not jack of all trades. We bring in an idea, we study it, and once we approve it, we set up a good professional board run by a professional person to run it and continue on the same formula. The board later on, when my brother Hamid became 65, he had to step down and hand to Zayed. Zayed with a new generation. Now Zayed is 25 years younger than I am, 3 years older than my son. So they're practically all the same age. And with them, as I said, non-family. And when Zayed became a minister in government for 2 terms, Nawaf took over from him, my son. And he ran the company on the same principles. There is the board after, with newcomers to us. And then this board in which my daughter joined the business, and she is a member of the board. Again, we have a female family member. Since then, Zayed came back from being a minister after 2 terms, and Nawaf became vice chairman. Now, since then, just recently, at the beginning of this year, something else happened. When you're 80, you step out even out of the joint ventures. So you allow the next generation to take over. So this way, we allow a senior management to be established within the new organization. We have many businesses. I'm not going to go through them all. In many car companies,
Thank you so much, because you mentioned some very important aspects about the governance, and maybe Dr. Adel can add to it from perspective of your own experience, and to see how it is organized here in the Emirates, here at the local turf. And also Mr. Elias can share with us some models of good governance and the current strategies that are being used. And especially we would love to hear from Gilbert about the African examples, because they have a lot of similarities but also a lot of differences in comparison to the Middle East. Dr. Adel, can we maybe start with you, if you can resonate with this example and sharing your aspects?
You can't add much to what His Excellency has highlighted.
I know it's a tough call, tough call.
I mean, basically, this is the book to be looked at, and definitely the case study to see on best practices on how family businesses should be structured. I probably gonna attend to the subject from a very different angle, because I don't think I can add much to what His Excellency has contributed with. I'll probably ask some more basic questions, probably, because family businesses, if you try academically, and I'm an academic in the subject, to try and find a definition for, it's super hard to find a definition that the world would agree on. Much to do with the fact that context has a lot of role on what a definition of a family business could look like. I'll give you a very simple example. If you look at the UAE, for a really long time, you needed a local partner in your business, and that local partner needed to own majority, so 51%. So if you try to define a business as to be a family business whereby a family owns more than 50%, then that wouldn't qualify for many family businesses in town. So there are many definitions. Some try to say that, well, a family business is a family business if there are multiple generations that work in the business, would then be defined as family business. But to the example of His Excellency, this could also be challenged as a definition. Instead of going through a debate of what a family business is defined as, let me touch on a few points on where do I see a differentiation between a family business and none specifically defined as a family business, because academically there's no clear differentiation between a business and a family business, because both would have been created probably by somebody, and then whether the business stays within that family or moves to different hands could then change the definition of what a family business is and not. I get a lot the push and a lot of discussions on governance, the importance of governance. And why is that? Is to keep the money together and keep the family together. But I always also beg the question, why do you want to keep the money together? And that is a question that's missed in many instances. Is it by force? Is that the idea? Because ultimately, what's the objective behind money? The objective behind money is ideally to enhance one's quality of life. And if that is the basic idea, and that idea is shared amongst the family, and it is clear amongst the members of the family that that money is meant for your well-being, for enhancing your quality of life, and whoever is leading on the family business is clear about that message and delivers on the feeling to the different family members and gives them the comfort, then I think that is the right starting point for any discussion about governance. where I occasionally stumble on people feeling that forcing it is the right way of doing so, because keeping money together has a scale, could save some money. That power of money staying together has influence in the market. And yes, all of these are true. But if the idea is not clearly translated and infused in the different family members, and they feel comfortable that that is the case, and that their rights are clear, and that the money is there to help them with their lives, themselves and their future generations, if that is not clear, then I don't think anything after that matters, because it will fall apart. Okay?
Absolutely. Thank you for highlighting the importance of having a clarity on the strategic direction, but also a strong communication and alignment between all the family members. It's quite important to understand how we approach this.
And when I get the question on, before shifting in here, when I get the question on what's the importance of family businesses, and yes, the GDP contribution, jobs, and all of that, but why is it different than any other business? I also try to highlight a very simple fact. 200 years of statistics highlight that 1 out of 10 businesses fail within the first 3 years. So by default, businesses fail. And that's not Adil's feeling, that's 200 years of statistics. Meaning that family, which is a business, have survived, is the 10% that survived, is the 10% that have survived more than 3 years. So what do they have in them that allowed them to survive in a statistically very hard statistical outcome, is what gives them value. And a lot of that is having the right ideas, being in the right place probably at the right time, which at times it's grace of God, it's not really their smartness. I'll give you an example of here. It was desert, and 50 years ago, nobody would have wanted to put in money in here, but now it's the right place, and that has a lot to do with a lot of factors, and luckily we have great leadership that allowed that to happen. But if you look at this area, more than 60, 70 years ago, you wouldn't have that thought. Yeah? So a lot of that is grace of God and great leadership. So good idea, being at the right place, at the right time, and having the necessary connection within the context you are in. This is why it is super difficult to compare businesses. Any business, not even within the same city, because the variables are so wide. So what makes a family business have a special place in an economy, or why family businesses are the first people to go to, is because they have the very hard mix of ingredients and variables coming all together at the right time, in the right place, within the right context. And this is why it still is, for startups and new ventures, their number one go-to potential investors and seed investors are families. Because they don't only come with money, they come with a brand, they come with the network, they come with mastery towards their context, and they will give the best chance possible for a business to thrive in a certain context. I'll stop there because I can talk about this for like 48 hours continuous and not finish.
I know. This is why this is the best panel, because we have such an important topic and such a strong speakers today. And I have so many questions for all of you. But I'm going to just drop this question, but I would love to hear from Mr. Elias, because you understand governance so well. And can you share with us, please, the most critical elements? What makes the governance model successful so that the family office, the family-owned business, is set up for success?
Thank you. I think that we, after the blueprint example we just heard in the Anzayani family example, I think which is for me clearly from what was said a blueprint. So we're starting from the tipping point, so it's very difficult to do better. I would like to start and also from business models where you are absolutely correct that it is about the opportunity, timing, and the thought process of setting it up. I think today that once we go back and we see internationally how family offices succeed and how families maintain the wealth for the preservation of the next generations, how they actually manage talent, how they identify the best governance to ensure that there is a separation between business management and investment management. This is where I think the international structuring and the blueprint of right governance with independent setups, allowing very simply what you have done and you have explained right now, is decision for the business and not decision for the ego. And that is actually what makes the whole difference. And today, and the ego, when I mean ego, can be conflicts, it can be personal interests, it can be personal situations, etc. Today, what we see on the most successful family offices that are either family offices that keep family business or family offices that have been created after the disposal of a family business or a liquidity event is actually family offices that are separating more and more the actual management of the wealth with the right and competent people, with the appropriate independent committees, call it investment committee, call it audit committee, remuneration committee. So this institutionalization of these family offices, which comes out of the independent structures that hold remaining family businesses or growing family businesses, this is actually where we see that they typically thrive and are actually able to go through crisis, I would say situations of market adverse situations or new business opportunities or new evolutions. So from that perspective, therefore, it is that independent element that comes in exactly like we saw with independent directors, with family members that are not there for the family but for their competence and addition, but the family, I would say, element that characterizes much more than the corporate world is these common ethos and values that come typically from, under any shape or form, a family pact. And exactly like you said, today what we see is more and more family pacts, however you call it, where actually rules and regulations, just like a company, are being accepted by all those who want to participate into this common goal. And some will be builders, some will be keepers, and some will be spenders, and that is okay. But they all know their role, and they all know where to actually participate, and how to best participate, so that what you call the negative side of the family does not impact the family wealth. So that is, I would say, my experience, and what I see today is this replication of institutional models with more independence and more, I would say, specialists that allow, depending on the size of the business, to grow it almost as if it was an asset management firm or an independent board. And I'll stop there so that actually
It's
Gilbert as well
absolutely taking that direction, and thank you so much for highlighting that. Mr. Gilbert, when we were preparing for this panel, we had this very interesting conversation, and you shared with me some of the examples that you encountered in the African market. And for me, it was so interesting to hear. I would love the audience to also learn about this aspect, about the similarities, but also about some differences. And you also mentioned this very interesting topic about the similarities between the sovereign wealth funds and family offices that we don't obviously see, right, at the first glance, but they are there. So if you could just share with us, please, a little bit of your insight.
Thank you. Maybe just taking you a little bit back to succession planning or family offices. The basis is obviously succession planning. So where I'm born and grew up in Africa, usually when you start talking about succession planning or setting up a will or life insurance, people start looking quite differently at you because they say you are calling death. So succession planning is not that common in Africa, but I wanted to point out and to really stress out that it is important, and I think we heard here how important it is, and even if it is still in an embryonic phase in Africa, this is something that is coming up and that can learn a lot from what we have heard today. Having said this, we heard a lot of what is important for family offices, family business, succession planning. I would mention independence. We heard about external advisors or external directors. It's very important. It's very important, transparency. But for me, what is most important is accountability. Whatever structure, strong structure you put in place, strong governance, corporate governance, there should be space for accountability at each and every moment. So for me, it's one of the most important points. And if you have that right, for 50, 75%, you have already your structure right. Going now to the sovereign wealth funds, as mentioned, I had the privilege of being the CEO of Agaciro Development Fund, which is the Rwandan Sovereign Wealth Fund. And when you compare with family offices, what I see, sovereign wealth funds are prudent and patient investors. They are discreet and trusted investors. They are working towards the future generations. So, and I think these three elements are also comparable to family businesses, family offices. And I think there are two natural partners who don't know each other or not always found each other. But I think for the future, this is a venue that should be explored. And I just would like to finish. They've been talking about financial returns, growth, maintenance of assets. I think there's also an important point to be mentioned, and it is family values. To just give an example, me with my family, at a very modest level, nothing compared to what we have here. We are setting up a foundation. My family name is Nyatanyi. It comes from Kwata Nyakurugamba, which is loosely translated perseverance against all odds. So the foundation we are setting up, the name is Kwatanya Foundation, just to remember ourselves, my brothers, sisters, about that value, but also that the future generations don't forget that we have family values. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. I love this example. And just a quick follow-up question for you. How you maintain this balance between family values, but also the current innovative trends that are maybe sometimes a little bit different from the core values that the family brings?
Well, there are two things. One thing is these family values are non-negotiable. The second thing is what we have seen with the previous generation and the current generation is different. So you need a structure in place which is agile, which allows that what was not possible 20, 30, 50 years ago, but should be possible today, that can fit into your structure.
Thank you so much. I have, because I'm being mindful of the time, as I said, I have so many questions. This is really a unique opportunity to get this valuable insights. But maybe the most important question for us is, what's next? What can we do in the future, considering that this is evolving landscape on the market? It's constantly evolving. So what, in your opinion, this is the question for all the panelists, what is, in your opinion, this next trend that's gonna set up the family offices for the future and maintain the continuity of the business?
I think what's important is that you get the family members to understand the system and work within the system. And there are rules and regulations that makes them stick together to maintain the value of their partnership. And this was installed in every one of them as they came in, before they literally joined as partners. And I'll come to the word partners later on. To give you an example, one of our industrial groups is Midal Cables. Midal Cables, you'll be surprised to know, is the largest manufacturer of high-tension cable in the world outside of China. 18% of its capacity goes to MENA countries, 25% to the United States, and the rest of the world. They have factories in Bahrain, in Mozambique, in Saudi Arabia, and in Turkey, and one being built now in Morocco. One of these Ayanis who joined then, a young, brilliant engineer, didn't stick to the rules. And we didn't know much about it, but the CEO called me and he said, "I'd like to see you urgently." So I said, "Come in." So he said, "One of your family members is not sticking to the rules, and we've tried. He's a brilliant engineer, but I can't keep him within my team." I said, "Did you send him warnings? You know, we have stages." He said, "Yes, 3 of them." I said, "What's next?" He said, he laughed, and he said, "We should fire him." I said, "Well, if you don't fire him tonight, you're fired tomorrow morning." And he fired him. And during later on stage, with Zayed in charge, he also went through a similar experience with one of the daughters. And she got fired by her CEO. So the discipline is there, and they know about it. And they stick to it. Another factor that unites them together is that once they reach the main board, their fathers have to give them part of their equity. So they're no longer employed. They own share and stake in the company. That's put them together. And we made as well a foundation, a charitable foundation, in the name of my father, of spending good money in the community. They all share in it. So they share in the unanimous gathering of the family. So you have to install moral values and also regulation and governance within the system. This is what keeps them together.
Thank you so much. Dr. Adel, what's next?
Thank you very much, Excellency. I got into the healthcare industry and invested in it. Many setups. I also got into education. And I built a school nearby, actually, here. And I was building the school. We had to develop a curriculum, yeah? And only then, sadly, it came to me as a shock to come to the realization that many of these systems, education, healthcare, are actually not designed and really not concerned with your quality of life. In fact, it has triggered a huge question that I'm trying now to answer, which is what defines our quality of life? I want to know. I want to be able to measure it. I want to be able to measure it today and tomorrow and then the next week. Why are concepts, common concepts in life like happiness or success or even love, are not real concepts. They are human-made concepts. They are all about the future. You're never happy today. You're only happy if you have that house and that car and that whatever. It's all in the future. It's all because of a social structure that we were born with and got us to believe that these concepts are real concepts. Now, I want to go back to the main question. So I am today concerned with how do I enhance the quality of life of the mass? And that's the question that I'm now infusing in every family member. When you find a pain point with people, that's the best place for you to invest, because that's the best place for you to make value and get money back. So the best investments are investments where you are really hitting on a pain, a very clear basic pain. Yeah? So today, when I ask the family members, whoever joins, I actually put on a head of recruitment. HR is a family member, so that they would push in family members to come. But I have to meet them before, because I want to make it very clear in their mind what are the values they'll work with. And they know very well that if they don't work as hard as I do, or even harder, they'll get fired. And I work hard. I work 25 hours a day.
That's a tough benchmark. Okay. That's a really tough one.
So they come in, and they come in with a purpose in life. And the purpose is bigger than the business they are in. And the purpose is noble, but not stupid. It's noble business-wise. Yeah? So giving a purpose, especially for the new generation. This is not a generation that came out hungry. Not like my father was an orphan. Born orphan. He was born orphan. He was swiping floors. Yeah? He did not care about feelings. He wanted food. Yeah? Today you have kids that never left home. They are gaming with their best friend is in Mozambique. I don't know where. You understand me? So that generation needs to find a purpose, and that purpose needs to be noble and business-wise. So infusing purpose into the new generations, I think that's a huge thing, especially now. Second thing, and I'm sorry, I'm going to cover 3 points. Second thing, you realize that the education system, I'll give you statistics. There are $60 billion sitting as disposable income in regional banks. Why is that? It's because most of these people, at some stage in life, will have some disposable income. Most of them would have invested some of that into this crazy idea a friend brought in, whereby he took his father and mother's savings and put them in that business that have failed miserably, which is natural because failure is the norm in business. But then they said, you know what, it's not for us. And all of that goes back to one sad reality, is that the education system has never trained us to long-term wealth manage, as well as long-term health and well-being manage, by the way. Yeah? This is where you come to realize it was never designed for your overall quality of life or happiness. It was never designed for that. It had a different problem to attend to 200 years ago. So today, we need to educate the whole family on long-term, balanced, healthy wealth management, and more importantly, well-being management. And if the school system has failed to do that for legitimate reasons, if society has not evolved to do that, it's our role to do that for our families, so that they come to play, when they come to play a major role in the family business, they come in with the basic fundamentals being solid in their mind. Examples are failure is the norm in business. So success is navigating through failures in the market. And being able to navigate is the skill you need for a sustained long-term wealth growth to the benefit of their quality of life and the wider community. And the last point I want to highlight is that as of last week, sitting with a new friend of mine, I've realized that I have to scrap almost half of my plans because AI is going to make it obsolete already. So I started the business, I launched it, and a few days after that, I decided, you know what, somebody with an AI tool is gonna eat me alive, and I haven't even started. You understand me? So I'm like looking at it and it's like, you know what, this can easily become an AI engine, and I will become obsolete. Why am I spending so much money? And I'll be spending way more money. And I'm like, guys, stop all recruitments, because I need to recruit an AI engine, not an, you understand me? So, for survival, today, doing things classically is not gonna make it. The whole thinking process has to be rethought massively, because AI, all of these technologies we've survived, we've witnessed in the last 4 decades or 5 decades. For example, the internet, satellites, mobile handsets, they have evolved our productivity as individuals 10s of times vis-a-vis our fathers. So what it used to take them to do in a week, we would do it in a few minutes today, yes? But what AI will do is that it will magnify our efforts by hundreds of times. I am now in discussion with a company that will build a business plan for you in seconds. Those business plans would have taken months and would have costed hundreds of thousands of dollars. I get them now for free in seconds. So productivity of the human species is going to magnify hundreds of times. But then one last bomb on the floor is that we already have a human population crisis. Unfortunately, with all of this AI power that we'll get, we'll not have enough humans to serve. So with that, there will be a lot of people with no jobs, because consumption will start dropping massively within the next 4 decades. And that will be a very awkward situation. But are we ready as families, the ones that want to survive a few more 100 years, for a very different reality that will hit us within the next 4 decades vis-a-vis the last 200 years? So if you haven't thought of it yet, I beg you to think of it, because the market will price it in my opinion, within 10, 15 years. Stock markets will not be as interesting as they were. Real estate will not be gold anymore. Gold is not going to stay gold anymore, and so on and so. So what would be, how would we then survive as a species economically? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the strong messages. You have given us so much food for thought, especially in this age of ongoing disruption. So because we're really closing to the top, getting close to the top of the hour, so real quick, Please, Mr. Elias, what's next? We want to hear from you. To round this discussion up, and please,
I should
Gilbert.
have really put my points before you because you brought it again to another level. So thank you very much for the words of wisdom. Thank you very much for the what you called bombs, but which are absolute reality. But before we go into the next 10, 15, 30, 40 years, I think my next thoughts will be more around the coming years and the current situations for those family offices that are now building up. And it will be a lot around the good governance, the independence between the setups, the appropriate, I would say, legal setups that will make them be able to progress and to start thinking about their investment projects, about the next generations, and about, I would say, the best way to replicate these to others and become themselves blueprints for the others. So that is, I would say, my next, which is much shorter term than what just mentioned before. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yes, please.
Can I just add and emphasize one point? I agree with what was just said. And this is why we have to hand over to the next generation. Because what has been good in my age is no longer valid today. And what has been good in father's age didn't become interesting in my age. And God knows what will happen in the future for the next generation too. We have to have good succession. Allow the next generation to take over because that's their time. And our time has finished.
Absolutely. And on this strong note, I will leave it to Mr. Gilbert to round up this discussion for us and share what's next from your perspective.
Not always easy to come after excellent speakers, but at least it allows me to be quite brief. So you mentioned at the beginning contribution of family offices and to the world GDP and employment. So I think for what's next, it's to see how these family offices will contribute to the challenges the world will be facing. Just to name, for example, climate, or as mentioned, AI, robotics. So what can be the position or the contribution of family offices towards these challenges? And as I mentioned before, how can family wealth combined with sovereign wealth create wealth for all of us? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have nothing to add except to share a big thank you to all of you for sharing this strong insights and sending these strong messages. I feel that we all learned a lot of new things today, and also you have given us so much to think about the future and to think about how we maintain the continuity. Again, thank you.